Prismatics Financial Institute.
Now, when it comes to managing climate risk, we need to understand which of the two different climate risk perspectives we're going to use. Now, the first perspective is how we impact the climate. For example, we impact it through our emissions from transport, from heat, deforestation, food production. And the second perspective is how the changing climate impacts us. For example, in the photo on the right, we can see an electric charging station that's underwater because it was built on a floodplain. So this is a good example of the need for more electric vehicles and charging stations due to the need to transition to a low carbon economy. Plus, we also need to be mindful of the increases in physical risk. And to add even more complexity to this, these two perspectives interrelated over long time periods. The more we impact the climate, the more it will change and impact us in turn. Now, because they have relatively low greenhouse gas emissions, the main financial risk for many financial institutions, such as banks, is from the impact of transition and physical risk on their counterparties. For example, on the corporates and households they do business with. But however, notwithstanding that, financial institutions should also understand how their operations affect the climate. And also, interestingly, the Central Bank of Chile showed these two perspectives in a financial stability report in 2019, which was focusing on climate change as a financial risk. And it was described the role of the financial regulator to identify and mitigate climate change as an amplifier of risks to the financial system. So turning back to this main risk, how will financial institutions' counterparties be affected? Now, corporates should be assessing their own risk from both of these perspectives. They should assess how they affect the climate, because their emissions could not only result in reputational risk and liability risk, it's also a proxy for their exposure to transition risk. Companies and industries with high greenhouse gas emissions are more likely to be impacted by a transition to a low carbon world than those with low greenhouse gas emissions. And corporates should also assess how the climate affects them so they can understand their financial exposure to physical risks. And financial institutions need to understand both of these perspectives.
Prismatics Financial Institute.